This just in, we have this brand new Genesis GV60 Performance, and in this video we are going to give you the rundown on everything you need to know about this car. Very fitting for the kind of day that we're having here in Colorado. This car is finished in white because we're getting what's going to turn into snow very soon here, and surprisingly enough, this shade of white actually costs extra. The name is something like, I'm probably going to say it wrong, Uyuni White. $575 if you want this color, which is interesting. And continuing with styling, one of Genesis's trademarks are their cool wheels, and this is no exception. You've got this really funky asymmetric spoke design, and I think that's pretty cool. Around the trunk, you also have this cool, I'll call it a spoiler, that separates the back glass into two pieces. And when you go to charge this car, you press on the charge door and it opens with power. And here you can see your charging ports, all pretty standard stuff. And when you want to close it, you press that button and there it goes. Under the hood, like a lot of Hyundai and Genesis products, you really don't have much in the way of storage. They give you this, which you could put probably a sandwich in and maybe an iPad or two iPads. But not much else than that. There's really not a ton of storage in here, which for some people is a big downside. But by far the most dramatic and exciting styling is saved here for the interior. First off, you have dark blue seats with green piping, which is already very unique, and you have a mix of different materials. You have this more traditional Napa leather, but you also have these, feels like suede panels that are here on the seats, different patterns, almost a diamond pattern. It's a really cool combination, and not just the piping, but also green stitching behind the piping as well. And one of the first things you notice on this interior is your drive selector. It is this globe shape with a couple different patterns in it. Depending on what angle you look at it from, this looks completely different. And if you're wondering how you use this to actually select a gear, well, as soon as you hit the start button, it rotates around, and then you can see your park button and you rotate it to go into drive or to go into reverse to switch through your gears, and it does give you a little bit of feedback when you do so. Throughout the interior, you also get this knurled pattern on a lot of your switchgear, which makes it feel unique. It makes it feel special to this car and not at all like a parts bin part. You can see that pattern on everything from the wheel that you use to navigate the center screen to your volume and tune controls. Moving up, these buttons as well have them, including the temperature controls here on each side. You've got it around your start-stop switch. You've got it on your vents, even up here on this stalk that you use to control your wipers. It's all over the place. But by far my favorite example of it is here on your mirror control. You've got that pattern around the outside, and you rotate this dial to either side to control which one of the mirrors you're going to be adjusting. And you can see the light up top lights up a different color. It lights up orange instead of white to show that you're changing which mirror you're controlling, and that just looks and feels fantastic. Similar to the seats, this door card also gives you a mix of different fabrics. So you've got that more suede material here in the center of the door card with a couple stripes through it. Really cool shape to your door handle. And then you've got that same blue leather with green stitching that you see on the seats. And then this is something pretty unique because you can see that there's a little bit of a pattern here. That's not just something printed on it. This is an actual physical texture that's put into these pieces. And then you've got Bang & Olufsen audio that's built into the whole car, and B&O is known for having really great stereo systems. There is a little bit of plastic here at the bottom of the door, but even the feel of this is actually pretty nice. For both your instruments and for your center screen, you've got two 12.3-inch displays. They're reasonably responsive and sharp. This center screen here you can control either with touchscreen or with the dial that's below it. But one thing that is not my personal favorite is the screen here for your climate. You do have a couple hard buttons for some of your climate controls, but a lot of this is this touchscreen. It gives you a little bit of feedback. It's not the worst thing in the world, but I typically prefer to have actual hard buttons. This is also something very minor but unique. Look at the way that the glove box opens. It's a drawer instead of a drop-down glove box, which is just unique and something that I think is kind of satisfying. We've also got heated and ventilated seats, a heated steering wheel, and a Qi wireless charger that can fit even my big Pro Max iPhone. For the steering wheel, we've got a number of buttons that are built into this. You've got your volume control, you've got your phone controls, some of your driver assistance controls, your drive mode selector here, and a boost function that we'll talk about when we're driving. But not all of these controls are my favorite, specifically this touchpad here on the steering wheel. It's something that I'll often bump accidentally when I'm moving my hands around the wheel. So that one's not my favorite. But what I do like a lot on the steering wheel are these paddles that let you on the fly adjust your regenerative braking. You also have a flat floor here in the Genesis, which gives you a little bit of extra room underneath the console. And you've got cubbies both in front and underneath the console. If I ever put anything in that cubby underneath the console, I think I would forget about it forever because it's so out of the way, you're never gonna see anything down there. And if that wasn't enough cubbies, you've even got an additional one here below your climate screen and right above the 2 USB-C ports. Now for driving the GV60, and this is one of the best things about this car. An electric luxury car just makes sense because it's quiet, it's smooth, there's no harshness to it, and this is no exception to that. It is very quiet and smooth. It's very compliant. These seats are plenty comfortable, and this car just gives you very little to worry about, very little to be stressed about. One of the most impressive things about it is for a modern car, it yells at you, beeps at you, and gives you warnings very seldomly. This car is almost never in your face about what you're doing driving around. So it's a relaxing car to be in, but if you want to, you can go into the sport driving mode, click the boost function, which gives you 10 seconds of extra power, and you can fly. So much so, actually, that we just torqued our action cam on the hood backwards, so we're gonna have to fix that real quick. Now let's see how spacious it is in the back of the GV60. And I'm only about 5'10", so I'm not the toughest test of this car's room, but I've got a decent bit of headroom, decent bit of leg room sitting behind myself, so that part of it's not bad. The center console gets you 2 cup holders in addition to the cup holders that are also on the door card. And right behind the cup holders on the door card, you actually get a heated seat control even here in the rear. However, in the rear seat, you only get these vents here on the side, nothing in the center. You do get a little screen here though, if you want some additional privacy. And if you're on the passenger side, you can actually move the passenger seat out of the way to give yourself some extra room, which of course you can't do to the driver's seat because the driver needs to drive. Naturally, the Genesis gets you a power lift gate, so you press down there and wait for it to open for you. And it's not a huge trunk, especially with the sloped rear end of this car, but there's a few interesting things back here. In all 4 corners, you have these tie downs in case you want to strap something down. And look at this light in the trunk. Even this, facing away from you, something that you'll rarely ever see, has a little bit of a design built into it. However, a little strange, this cover right here tells you max load 130 pounds. So I guess you wouldn't want even me sitting on this platform. And underneath here, you have a tire mobility kit. There is no spare, not even a compact spare, which is something that we wish this car had. One other thing that you do get under this cover though is your V2L plug, which stands for vehicle to load. And this allows you to plug into your charge port, and that way you can actually get some power out of this and use the battery in this car as a power bank. We have to talk about some of the numbers with this car. So 429 horsepower regularly here in the GV60 Performance, which is already a good number, but when you go into that boost mode, it bumps you up to 483 horsepower for that 10-second period, and that gives you really solid acceleration. And I've talked about it a lot of times before, but being able to use these paddles to adjust how much regenerative braking you get on the fly is really nice to do. That way, if you want to coast a little bit, you can bump the paddles and you will coast. Or if you're going down a mountain, you don't want to be using the brake pedal that whole time, you can increase the regeneration. So that's a really nice system to have. And charging on this car, also pretty impressive. 350 kilowatts of fast charging, which Genesis says will get you from 10 to 80% in as little as 18 minutes, which is pretty solid figure for the 77.4 kilowatt hour battery pack. So all of that is good. It's also an all-wheel drive powertrain. So here in Colorado, when the weather turns like it has, you're not worried about any of that either. And for range on this car, you get about 235 miles. Because this is the performance, it's not the most that you can get out of a GV60, but it's an okay figure. It's not spectacular. The fast charging helps. A GV60 performance like this one is going to start right around $68,000, which is a lot of money, and as spec'd, this one in particular is $71,000, so even more expensive. Now I know, that's a lot of cash, but there's a lot of things that this car does really well. And if you don't believe me, get behind the wheel of one, because you might be impressed at just how comfortable and luxurious and nice to drive this vehicle really is. And there's a lot of things about it that make it feel truly unique. So let me know what you all think in the comments below. That's all for this video, and be sure to stay tuned to TFL EV for even more reviews coming down the pipeline.